Alright, so fresh level 65 raiding guide. So the purpose of this guide is to find the sort of minimal amount of grinding approach that you need to do to tackle Moonlord Master and Xenolord Ultra comfortably. So the raid army I decided to use are these freshly captured legends. Just captured a bunch of legends and then leveled them up to 65. Used the PAL surgery table to give them Serenity and Musclehead, or in the case of the rescue pals, just some defense or move speed passives on those. And then just the 30 souls as well. So going for just the 30 souls is around 6 times less total amount of giant PAL souls compared to going for the full plus 60. So it is more like a budget-friendly approach to this raiding team. The party pals, we got these Frostallions to convert your damage to ice against Xenolord Ultra, just going full speed on those. And then we also have these Jetragons that we're going to be using against Xenolord Ultra to spam Meteor Rain on the ad waves. And then for the equipment, we just got this basic white gear. I got the Hex Slide helmet, I got a heat-resistant plasteel armor, just because I brought the wrong armor, but that seemed to work fine. You should be using the heat-resistant Hex Slide armor instead. We have just the shields, just stuff from the tech tree, plasma cannon. Now the multi-guided missile launcher is only from the oil rig, but I find that you can probably do a couple of oil rigs for the green version at least. And then the same thing with the Terra Prisma, which we're going to be using against Xenolord Ultra. So these two are not from the tech tree, but we're using the lowest tier 1 available. Grappling guns are from the tech tree. So just some basic stuff. The pendants, a little bit different accessories depending on what you're fighting. Like against Xenolord Ultra, you probably want to stack a lot of defensive stuff, while against Moonlord Master you can go full attack if you're standing a little bit outside the base. Then we have the skill fruit, so you could do it like at least Xenolord Ultra with just the skills that the pals have, but it's going to be a lot more difficult. So against Moonlord Master you want Dark Wisp, Beam Slicer and Hydro Slicer, and then you keep Hydro Slicer, you add Holy Burst, and you use that Thalassonic Laser, the exclusive skill on Neptilius. Then we got some defense bonuses or defense foods for your rescue pals and maybe the Frostallions as well, since they won't be attacking that much. You got attack food for you and the Jetragons in the party and all the fighting pals in the base. Revival potion, just in case one of your like Frostallions goes down or one of your Jetragon goes down. It's always nice to have some revival potions, because then you also have these advanced recovery meds, which the healing does add up quite a lot over these long like 8-minute fights and stuff like that. And then we just have these accessories that you will switch in depending on which fight you are actually doing. So we're going to jump straight into the first fight here, and then I'm going to probably split this guide into 2 parts, one for each fight. So we're going to start off with Xenolord Ultra, which means that we're going to be using these Frostallions. We're going to have the Jetragons for the ads. So just the attack food on the Jetragons and yourself, then we got the defense food on the Frostallions, healing potions for all 6, and then starting to get this Terra Prisma up and ready. Just swinging the sword before the fight starts. Then I have the multi-guided missile launcher, the plasma cannon, and a grappling gun. We're using Thalassonic Laser, Holy Burst, and Hydro Slicer. And then we have these 4 rescue pals. So really that's just the plain setup to start the fight. The pals are level 65, leveled up with that Sakurajima based leveling method that you can look up. I think I forgot to level up 2 of them though, I noticed while looking back at the video. So I think one of the rescue Neptilius and one of the fighting Neptilius are still level 60. But overall against Xenolord Ultra, it's not a huge difference, these 5 levels. Like there's only a couple of stat differences between 60 and 65. That kind of difference is more noticeable against Moonlord Master, who's max level, so that's when you really want that level 65. But you're fine with level 60 for Xenolord Ultra. So there's a lot of ways to really tackle this fight with this method here. The tricky part can be maybe staying in range for the Terra Prisma to actually do damage, but at the same time you can see all the pals are going down, but the rescue Jetragons are just going to be doing their thing, getting them all up and running ASAP with a bunch of those pal pods. But yeah, so like the no negative aspect of the raids is that you can die however many times you like. You won't lose the fight, unlike a tower boss. So really you could just kind of hover above your pal box to make sure that your equipment drops right next to it when you spawn in. When you do spawn in, you get a couple of seconds where nothing can hit you, so you don't really need to care if you die if you just want to get the win and get the egg or something. And here we have the first ad phase. We switch to a Jetragon. It uses Meteor Rain. You kind of wait for the animation to complete, switch Jetragon, it uses Meteor Rain, or you could sort of use the jet dragon to move a little bit further away. So since Xenolord was using a Cosmic Meteor, I didn't want to tank that. So I decided to fly away a little bit and then use a Meteor Rain. And while the fight looks like it's going horribly, like all the pals are dying over and over and over, the pals' true purpose here isn't really to do a lot of damage. They're mostly there to distract Xenolord and then do as much damage as possible. Like, the damage is decent, but at most of the thing they're there for is just to make sure that I can just hover around with the Terra Prisma doing damage, shooting a couple of shots with this multi-guided missile launcher, while just trying to stay alive myself. So he does have a couple of attacks that can really hurt, like Astral Ray, Beam Slicer, stuff like that will just absolutely shred through whatever shields and defenses you have. And as I mentioned in the start of the video, I am wearing the wrong armor for this, and it's white armor, so you could add a lot of survivability by just going for like green or blue or purple versions of the armors you have. So as well there, I land and I let my jet dragon help a little bit with the rescuing. If you notice that your rescue pals are going down, it's mostly when he decides to use like a big holy burst on a clump. There's the Cosmic Meteor, sometimes the Omega Laser. There are a couple of attacks that Xenolord can do that can wipe all the pals at once. Then you just turn combat off, you land and you let your jet dragon help out until it's rescued like a couple of the rescue pals, and then they can keep going. But then you really don't want to spend too much time manually rescuing, because that's a big DPS loss. And as mentioned, the base pals are mostly there to distract. You want to be doing a lot of damage, just staying in range with the Terra Prisma and shooting missiles as much as you can, just while on this Frostallion. So if you land, you lose out on that ice damage. So while you're still doing a respectable amount of damage, it is around 50% lower if you decide to land. Or I mean not land, but if you decide to switch to jet dragon to have it do the manual rescuing itself. And then the reason why you could have done this with just the plasma cannon, for sure. Like, there's no, I think it's a little bit more DPS than this green multi-guided. But just when using these Thalasonic lasers against Xenolord rushing around a ton as well, and all the pals being alpha, it can just be very tricky to actually spot Xenolord through all the stuff going on. So the multi-guided, you can just kind of, like, you can turn your back and shoot and it will still hit Xenolord, as long as it's not being blocked by a couple of your army pals. So, like, just using the multi-guided is very nice for that, like, Thalasonic laser counter. You're countering your own pals' particle effects, I guess. Then having my jet dragon do some rescuing, and then as soon as I see Xenolord sort of fly up in the air, flying jet dragon, I like to just mount my jet dragon on Frostallion and fly away, just in case it's aiming for me. And then something else you might have noticed there is that there was no like big tackle on the Cosmic Meteor. So if you are in the air and you don't look up, you just look down, then the Cosmic Meteor, like if the tackle is going for you, it won't tackle at all. He'll just like have the sound effect and then slowly fall down towards the floor. So what I said as well in the start of this guide, like comfortably being able to do Xenolord Ultra, if this doesn't look super comfortable to you, there's a ton of things you can do to just make this fight a lot easier. Like for one, just adding like 2 stars to all the pals, or even just 1 star is not a lot of effort. So there, when Xenolord is stunned as well, I just take the opportunity to just reset a couple of the pals that had flown so far out of the base that they were not being rescued. Like that jet dragon we saw like flying into the cliff before. So there's a couple of manual things you can do there with that remote pal box control thing. So the base setup itself, I like to have these remote pal box control devices, whatever they are called, like one on each side of the base for this fight, just to like comfortably land, maybe switch out a pal or 2 if you have backups, or just reset the ones that seem to. Sometimes they fall underground, sometimes they end up on cliffs, stuff like that. Third Terra Prisma breaking. So the Terra Prisma has a pretty low durability, as you might notice. Some people just turn off durability because it's a bit of an annoying mechanic here. Otherwise the Terra Prisma, you're gonna have to bring, I think it's around 5 green Terra Prismas for this fight, and that really depends on how much your raid army is actually doing. I did try with just 2 rescue pals, but it just became more of a hassle. Like, it was a little bit higher DPS having more base pals fighting, but at the same time it ended up me needing to rescue the rescue pals more often than not. So you can see here I send out that Jetter again. It tried to aggro something far away, so then I switch Jetter again anyway and do it manually. Sometimes they just decide to aggro like this random Xenovader on the far side of the base. So if they start moving when you summon them, just desummon them and redo it. Then I turn off the combat on the Jetter again, I have it rescue a bit. Just kind of trying to stay far away from the ads here, because these Xenovaders will do this sort of jumping attack on you. It hurts quite a bit and can be quite overwhelming. The Xeno guards, and here I messed up a bit because I didn't really notice it until too late. But you see, since I'm in the air, it doesn't tackle me. Not looking up, great. So there's a couple of things you can do with that. And then that Astral Ray, getting me very low with this white, white plasteel armor, rather than the Hexolite armor. So yeah, a couple of things you can do to just make this way easier on yourself. For one, just not using the white gear. Adding souls to pals. I think the most important pal to add souls to, if you're going to be condensing and adding souls to just a couple, are the rescue pals. Like if you give those 4 Jetragons a couple of extra defense souls, and a couple of like condensed stars and stuff like that, the fight itself will be a lot smoother. And just adding like 1 or 2 stars to each pal, either it's you take an extra 4, you take an extra 20, it's a lot lower than that 117 that you need to go to 4 stars, like max condense. Sort of like what I mentioned with the souls, that if you just go to 30 souls, you're halfway there, but you're only using like, I think it's a 6th or a 7th, somewhere around there, total amount of souls grinding that you need to do. So it just becomes a little bit easier with that as well. So you can see the timer is running pretty low, but the DPS is there. Still almost 2 minutes left on the clock. So could have done with like even worse setup DPS wise, but the thing is, if you use worse pals, like I did try these with these like basic 0 soul pals as well, and what ends up happening is that all of them get one shot a little bit too often. So the rescue pals just couldn't really keep up with everything that was going on. And then like the fight just spirals out of control, you end up landing a bunch more, you end up at the PAL control box a bunch more, and the fight just kind of times out because the DPS just ends up being too low. And here you can see, this is when I noticed that I was using 2 level 60 pals as well, but that's pretty fine, doesn't matter a whole lot. We have this revival potion, like if you end up losing pals you could use that revival potion. Went through about 4 Terra Prismas, so the 5th one would probably have been needed if the base pals died just a little bit more. So overall, like this is probably the minimal amount of grind and 0 breeding and stuff that you need to do for this fight. But there's a lot of stuff you can add to just make it a little bit easier. Just everything from like souls to condensing to better gear. And there's also stuff you can do to make it harder if you don't want to grind for it. Like you could skip Holy Burst and Hydra Slicer because we still had 2 minutes on the clock, but it is going to be a bit more difficult. So that's it for this part. Thanks for watching.